She said she found herself. Turns out she found him in my favorite recliner. That sentence looks almost funny when I say it out loud. But I promise you, when you live it, it isn't comedy, it's a gut punch. Because when the woman you've loved for years tells you she's going on some deep, spiritual journey of self-discovery, you want to believe her. You want to think she's growing, evolving, peeling back layers, and finally figuring out who she is. What you don't expect is to walk into your own living room and see her version of self-discovery sprawled out in the one place that was sacred to you, wearing a smug grin and sipping a beer from your fridge. That recliner, it wasn't just furniture. It was mine, the one I saved up for, the one I picked out after weeks of comparing fabric swatches and testing comfort levels like I was choosing a life partner. It was where I'd collapse after long shifts, where I watched games, where I read late into the night. It was the one piece of the apartment that was fully me. And there he was, sitting in it like he'd earned it, like he belonged, like it was natural for him to be there. But let me rewind, because you need the full picture of how this unfolded. It started with her telling me she needed space. Not space from me, exactly, but from life. From the chaos of work, the pressure of expectations, the feeling of being stuck. She said she was signing up for yoga classes, journaling, reading self-help books. She said she wanted to find herself, and I, like the supportive idiot I was, nodded and told her I'd be there every step of the way. I thought she was being brave, mature, taking responsibility for her happiness. So when she started staying out later, coming home with that restless sparkle in her eyes, I didn't question it. I thought, good, she's growing, she's discovering things about herself. When she said she was meeting new people through her classes, I smiled and told her that was great. I believed every word, because why wouldn't I? Until the day I came home early. I'd had a brutal day at work, and all I wanted was to sink into that recliner, kick my feet up and drown in the silence. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and froze. There he was, a stranger, broad-shouldered, beard trimmed neat, wearing jeans and a t-shirt. Like this was his place, sitting in my recliner, beer in hand, TV on, and she was in the kitchen, humming, cooking like it was a normal evening. For a few seconds my brain refused to process it. I thought maybe he was a friend of hers I hadn't met, some classmate from yoga, someone she'd invited over for dinner. But then I saw the way his arm rested lazily on the chair, the way he looked at her when she laughed from the kitchen. That wasn't casual, that wasn't platonic, that was possession. I cleared my throat. Who's this? She spun around, spatula in hand, eyes wide like she'd been caught stealing. Oh, you're home early. This is Alex. He's a friend. Alex smirked, lifted his beer like a toast. Nice place. My jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth would crack. My recliner creaked under his weight, and all I could think about was how many nights I'd sat there. How many memories were etched into that fabric, and now it was contaminated by him. A friend, I repeated, my voice low. She nodded too quickly, too eagerly. Yeah, from yoga. We were just hanging out. In my chair, drinking my beer, acting like I was the guest in my own home. I didn't explode though. That's the part that surprises people when I tell this story. I didn't lunge at him, didn't scream at her. I just stood there, staring, every nerve in my body screaming at me to do something. But instead, I filed it away. I watched. I observed, because sometimes silence is scarier than rage. That night, he left eventually, after dinner, after thanking me for the hospitality I never offered. She tried to act normal, cleaning dishes, asking about my day. I didn't answer. I just sat in the recliner after he'd gone, feeling the heat of where he'd been, the ghost of him still there. And that was when I realized something. Her self-discovery wasn't about yoga, or books, or journaling. Her self-discovery was about him. She hadn't found herself. She'd found a replacement. Over the next weeks, the pattern became clear. Every time she said she was meeting friends, every time she said she needed me time, she was with him. And slowly, she started weaving him into the fabric of my life. Little things at first: an extra toothbrush in the bathroom, a hoodie draped over the back of the couch, his beer of choice, suddenly stocked in the fridge. My home was becoming theirs, and I was just there. But here's the thing about betrayal. It sharpens, it strips away the illusions, the excuses, until all that's left is clarity. And my clarity was this. If she wanted to play house with him in my recliner, then she was going to learn what it felt like when the floorboards gave way beneath her. I didn't confront her directly. Not yet. I played along. I smiled when she said she was finding herself. I nodded when she talked about new philosophies, new ideas, new happiness, and all the while I was collecting screenshots of their posts, photos of him leaving my place, receipts from dinners they had while I was working late, because when the time came, I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to expose, clean. And that's where part one of this story leaves us. Me, sitting in the recliner after he's gone, staring at the door, vowing that the next time it opens, it won't just be for her lies to walk in. It'll be for the truth to come crashing down. I remember the night I finally decided enough was enough. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't fireworks or a screaming match. It was quiet. I'd come home late, tossed my keys on the counter, and there it was again. My recliner occupied. He was leaning back like a king on a throne. Shoes kicked off, remote in his hand, like this was his living room. She was curled up on the couch, smiling at something he'd said. Neither of them noticed me at first. I stood in the doorway watching, invisible in my own home. It's strange, rage burns hot, but betrayal burns cold. I didn't shout. I didn't throw him out. I just smiled faintly, said hello, walked into the kitchen, and cracked open one of his beers. Their eyes darted to me then, nervous, guilty, but I stayed calm. That was the night I realized my silence was louder than any fight I could have started. But silence has an expiration date. For weeks I'd been collecting screenshots of texts, times she said she was at yoga, but was actually with him, photos of them slipping into restaurants, proof that she wasn't finding herself so much as she was finding him in all the places I wasn't invited. I had enough to build a case that would convict them both in the court of anyone's opinion. Friends, family, even strangers, and I knew exactly how I wanted to use it. The opportunity came in the form of her birthday. She was throwing a party at our place, inviting friends, co-workers, the whole circle. She begged me to be there, said it would mean the world to her if we showed we were still strong. The audacity of that nearly broke me into laughter, but I agreed, because what better stage to set the truth on fire than in front of the people she worked so hard to impress. The night of the party, I dressed sharp, not for her, not for him, but for me, to remind myself I was still whole, still a man, not the background character they thought I'd become. People poured in, music played, laughter filled the air. She floated around the room like a hostess in a magazine spread, smiling, laughing, introducing him to more and more of our friends. Yes, our friend, as if she could weave him into the fabric of my life and expect no one to notice the loose threads. When the time came for the cake, I made my move. The room gathered, the candles glowed, and she leaned forward to make a wish. She blew them out, applause echoed, and that's when I raised my glass. Before we cut the cake, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, I'd like to make a toast. The room quieted. She smiled nervously, eyes flicking to me, probably expecting something safe, something polite. I cleared my throat. They say when someone says they've found themselves, you should be happy for them. You should support them, cheer them on. But what they don't say is sometimes finding yourself really means finding someone else. In my chair, in my home, drinking my beer. Gasps, whispers. She froze, color draining from her face. He stiffened, suddenly looking very small in a room full of people who now had their eyes locked on him. I pulled out my phone, tapped a few times, and held it up. Photos, screenshots, proof. I passed it to the nearest friend, who passed it to the next, the murmurs spreading like wildfire. The evidence was undeniable. She told me she needed space. She told me she was discovering who she really was. And it turns out, who she really was right there, with him. While I sat in the dark thinking she was growing, she was just replacing, and she didn't even have the decency to hide it anywhere but in plain sight. The room buzzed with disbelief. Some shook their heads, some whispered furiously. A few of her friends glared at her with betrayal in their eyes, like they'd been lied to as much as I had. She finally found her voice, trembling. This isn't the time. No, I cut in. This is exactly the time, because you wanted me silent. You wanted me complicit. You wanted me to smile while you let him sit in my chair like a king in a castle I built. But I'm done being quiet. Tonight, Everyone gets to see what I've been living with. He stood then, stammering something about leaving, about not wanting drama, but the damage was done. He couldn't look anyone in the eye. He left without saying goodbye, slipping out the door like a thief. And her, she tried to hold it together, tried to smile, to laugh it off, to call me dramatic, but her friends weren't buying it. Not when the evidence was right there, glowing on my phone. The party fizzled after that. People made excuses to leave early. She tried to pull me aside, tears in her eyes, begging me to talk privately. I shook my head. No more private. No more secrets. You wanted to find yourself. Congratulations. You found him. Just don't expect to find me waiting on the other side. I walked out that night, left her with her candles burned down to nothing, her cake untouched, her friends whispering behind her back. In the weeks that followed, she tried everything, texts, calls, even showing up at my job. She said she made a mistake, that it wasn't serious, that she still loved me, but love isn't a chair you can leave empty for months, and then slip back into when you're tired of standing. Love is earned, built, protected, and she had burned it to ash in my favorite recliner. The recliner itself, I couldn't sit in it anymore. Not after him. Not after them. So one morning, I hauled it to the curb, let the garbage truck take it away. People asked me if I regretted it. I don't, because some things once tainted can never be reclaimed. But me, I walked away with my dignity intact. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I didn't sink to their level. I showed the truth, and the truth did the rest. She said she found herself. What she really found was the one thing she couldn't keep, because I'd already taken it back.